On April 17, 2011, 15-year-old Amber Wright sent her ex-boyfriend Seath Jackson a text message promising reconciliation. Hours later, Jackson was brutally beaten, shot multiple times, burned in a backyard fire pit, and his charred remains stuffed into paint buckets.
I hope they get the electric chair and they burn, and we can all sit and watch them like they did to him.
Wright didn't just participate in this murder, she orchestrated it. She lured Jackson to his death with lies about getting back together, coordinating with 4 other teenagers in one of Florida's most calculated teen murders. But here's the shocking twist that will change everything you think you know about juvenile justice. Wright's breakup with Jackson in March 2011 had been bitter. She'd quickly moved on to 18-year-old Michael Bargo, who openly threatened Jackson, telling him, "I have a bullet with your name on it," just 1 week before the murder. Jackson suspected danger. His final text to Wright read, "If IG jumped, say goodbye, all right." Yet he still trusted her enough to show up at the Summerfield home where Wright promised they could talk. What Jackson found wasn't reconciliation. It was a coordinated ambush. The group's elaborate concealment efforts, including burning the body and disposing remains in paint buckets, revealed sophisticated planning that challenged every assumption about teenage criminal capabilities. But the legal nightmare was just beginning.
And then all of a sudden I hear, bam, like sitting on my bullets into me.
Wright was initially questioned without Miranda warnings. Although she later received proper rights before a second confession, appellate courts ruled the second statement was tainted by the first violation, the fruit of the poisonous tree doctrine. This constitutional violation would overturn Wright's initial conviction, forcing Jackson's family through years of retrials and appeals. Meanwhile, Florida's direct file provision allowed prosecutors to bypass juvenile court entirely, subjecting 15-year-old Wright to full adult penalties. But in 2012, the Supreme Court's Miller v. Alabama decision declared mandatory life sentences unconstitutional for juveniles, emphasizing that such sentences should be reserved for the rarest of children, those whose crimes reflect irreparable corruption. The co-defendants' varying outcomes reveal the system's complexities. Michael Bargo.
Okay, but you weren't in love with her or sleeping with her. In fact, isn't it true?
18 and the primary shooter received death, later vacated. Wright's brother Kyle Hooper and Justin Soto got life sentences. But Charlie Ely's case shows how legal technicalities can dramatically alter justice. Her conviction was reduced to second-degree murder with 10 years due to ineffective counsel. She was released after 9 years, despite participating in the same brutal murder. Wright received life with possibility of review after 25 years, reflecting judicial recognition of potential rehabilitation. Research shows only 6.9% of adolescent homicides involve intimate partners, making Wright's case statistically rare. The group dynamics created conditions for diffusion of responsibility, where individual moral constraints weakened through group membership. Wright's sophisticated text message deceptions challenged assumptions about adolescent cognitive limitations. This wasn't peer pressure. It was calculated manipulation by someone who understood exactly what she was doing. The adolescent brain's prefrontal cortex, responsible for impulse control, continues developing into the mid-20s, creating inherent vulnerabilities in judgment. Yet Wright's planning revealed capabilities that seemed far beyond typical teenage decision-making. Jackson's family endured not only their son's brutal murder, but years of legal proceedings as Wright's case moved through appeals and retrial. Research on homicide grief indicates families experience particular trauma when violence is perpetrated by someone known to the victim. The case has generated extensive media attention, raising ethical questions about true crime coverage of juvenile cases. Such coverage can re-traumatize victim families while potentially impacting defendants' rehabilitation prospects. Internationally, the Convention on the Rights of the Child prohibits life imprisonment for juveniles. While the US hasn't ratified this treaty, it establishes global norms increasingly influencing domestic discourse about juvenile justice. Wright, now in her 20s, faces decades in prison during critical developmental years. Can someone who commits such calculated violence as a teenager achieve meaningful rehabilitation? How do we balance public safety with recognition of adolescent developmental vulnerabilities?
In that one instance, Tracy, she lost both her children to the justice system. But I'm sure that there are times that she thought to herself, as I would as a mother.
Charlie Ely's successful appeal and release illustrates how constitutional protections can create disparities that seem unjust to victim families, while highlighting the critical importance of effective legal representation. The Wright case exposes fundamental tensions in juvenile justice. How do we hold children accountable for adult crimes while recognizing their capacity for change? The brutal murder of Seath Jackson changed not only the lives of everyone involved, but the framework through which we understand youth violence in America.
I battle with this all the time because for me, as a mom, I feel for those kids because they are kids.
As Wright awaits her 25-year review, her case continues influencing legal precedent and public discourse around juvenile justice, forcing us to confront uncomfortable questions about punishment, rehabilitation, and the possibility of redemption.